And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and we're here talking with Giorgio Tsoukalos, publisher of Legendary Times magazine. So if you're interested in this kind of information, you might want to go there and get a subscription. Also, if you've been enjoying the programming today, please do mark this show as a favorite. Giorgio, I feel like I opened this huge can of worms, but I'm excited. So
yes,
before the break, I mentioned about man being created to do the labors of the gods. So I'm just going to leave it there and give it to you.
No, and that is, it's such a fascinating story because that is, these are one of the basic tenets of the Ancient Astronaut Theory that a long time ago, not only did extraterrestrials visit Earth, however, they also manipulated our genes with some type of a targeted mutation of our DNA. And so that is when essentially we became human. Because, the ancient alien theory does not negate or try to throw out the window Darwin's evolutionary theory, because we obviously have the fossil record. We obviously have a type of evolution. However, anyone who's ever read The Origin of Species knows that even Darwin himself in the last chapter said, okay, I really like my theory and I think it makes a lot of sense. But despite everything, there is something that does not make any sense, because what he couldn't figure out is how, because evolution basically teaches that everything is gradual. It goes from point A to point B, from B to C, and so on and so forth, where we now know in our evolutionary fossil record, sometimes we went from point A to point C, from C to K, and from K to Z. I mean, really bizarre, leaps and bounds, quantum leaps that happened overnight without any transitionary periods or, in between stages. So Darwin referred to that as the missing link. And the missing link is something that scholars and scientists still today are fighting with, because, so you basically have two camps. One camp, you have the staunch evolutionists who say, well, that the missing link, the reason why we haven't found it is because the planet is so large and we have not yet stumbled across those fossils, because fossils are very rare to find. That's a, kind of a valid argument, but at the same time still lame, because there are so many human ancestors that appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared again or got extinct, that, I would think that transitionary periods, fossils would have been found. And then there's the other camp on the other side, where they do not believe in evolution at all, and then because of the missing link problem, and they say, well, obviously it wasn't natural selection, but it was God. God, as in, God described in the Bible, and those people refer themselves as intelligent design people. That they say that there had to be some sort of an intelligence behind our upbringing or our origins. And here is the crazy thing. Both camps don't like each other. But here is the ancient alien camp in the middle, and here is the answer. And, this answer, of course, can be debated as well. But in our opinion, we suggest that both camps are right, and both camps ultimately have to meet in the middle, because the missing link is a targeted mutation, or was a targeted mutation of our genes in the remote past by extraterrestrials, so that, yes, we have a type of evolution because we have an evolutionary fossil record, and yes, there was an intelligent designer behind it, but that intelligent designer was not God as we think God exists today as the spirit of creation or the divine consciousness, the force of the universe or whatever you want to call God. But that God described in the Bible wasn't God at all, but a misinterpreted flesh and blood extraterrestrial that our ancestors thought was God, but he, she, it never was. And so, both sides are correct, but they have to meet in the middle for all of this to work out, because neither sides, because both sides right now are struggling with certain aspects of their theory. And I surmise that only if the two meet in the middle, that's when everything will fall into place a little bit better than it does right now.
And if you look at the timeline, I mean, just the number of years from when we were the first hominid, so the first kind of ape man was identified, to where modern humans came in. It's like the timeline, and then from that point to where we are, it's like the timeline's not long enough for us to lose the big toe sticking out from the side of the foot, for us to lose our hair. I mean, we're talking about a lot of quote-unquote mutations that happen in a really, really short period of time.
Exactly. And obviously, when I say that quantum leaps happened overnight, I didn't mean that literally within 24 hours, but actually, instead of millions of years, it only took thousands of years. And, and that is fairly short for an evolutionary process, especially since evolution requires a lot of time. And so you're absolutely correct that there were certain things where too much happened in a very short, too much, that's in quote unquote, that's in quotes, where too much happened within a very short period of time. I mean, one thing we have to remind ourselves that when Homo sapiens came into being, for about 150,000 years, for about 80,000 years, we were in a kind of vegetative state. I mean, nothing happened. We were just existing alongside Neanderthal, by the way. And so Neanderthal then died out, and we made it. And I have another reason why we made it, by the way, that I will address later. But that then after about 80, 90,000 years, all of a sudden, virtually overnight, a big bang of intelligence happened where, all of a sudden we're, making these geoglyphs, petroglyphs, we're drawing on the walls. There's this big bang of creation or of knowledge that all of a sudden just pops up. And, here we are. In the 21st century, and it's like, how was it all possible? And that is something that scientists are struggling with, because throughout our human history, we've gone through a couple of stages that are genetically referred to as, or scientifically referred to as, genetic bottlenecks. And a genetic bottleneck is a natural occurrence, natural phenomenon that happens in every species in the animal kingdom, where basically, due to environmental and DNA reasons, a population of a species dwindles down to a precariously low number. So that in those cases, when a genetic bottleneck happens, there is a 99.999% chance that that species will become extinct, that species will die out. Now, Homo sapiens has gone through at least 2 genetic bottlenecks back in the day, and each time this Italian one of these bottlenecks, one Italian geneticist has suggested that our worldwide human population decreased to only 1,800 human beings, 1,800 human beings on the entire planet Earth. The likelihood, she suggested, that we survive this bottleneck, she cannot put a reason why that should have happened. And obviously, she cannot speculate. But this is why I love that I can do what I do. And my suggestion is that there is no way that we would have made it this far without a direct interference and a direct guarantee that our survival was ensured by extraterrestrials, because they themselves have and had a vested interest in us. So that when these genetic bottlenecks happened, that the only reason why we did not become extinct is because extraterrestrials interfered and ensured our continued survival.
So they took us and put us on the endangered species list, and then stuck us in Eden so we could grow our population, and then put us back out into the wild.
Possibly.
That's really sick, but
possibly. I mean,
that little thought came to my head.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows. And then where was Eden? The idea that Eden was this type of garden, that's very interesting, but looked at from the ancient astronaut perspective, because there are multiple stories about the Garden of Eden, not just in Christianity, but all around the world. We have different cultures that speak of this wondrous place that was abundantly filled with food and with things, and just paradise. And so in 1989, Erich von Daniken actually brought forth the idea that what if the Garden of Eden wasn't necessarily a garden per se, but some type of a station, some type of a laboratory that was absolutely posh and beautiful, almost spa-like, with gardens and things like this, but it was a complete artificial environment created by extraterrestrials, possibly even on their ships. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know exactly that all this sounds very crazy. I'm the first one to admit that, all of this sounds absolutely nuts. But, if you look at the descriptions of the Garden of Eden, sometimes described as this round object with gleaming metal walls on the inside, and that the garden would only open up if you entered through those walls, and things like that, and blinking lights and jewels on the ceiling, and blinking lights and jewels on the floor and on the walls, and things like that. I mean, what did our ancestors mean when they described blinking lights or jewels on the walls? And the walls were usually described as either being bronze in color or gleaming like metal. Growing up in the woods, when was the last time you saw gleaming metal walls inside a forest or a garden? You don't, unless there's a shed there, but that's something else.
But it would also be, that notion would also be congruent with a number of the Native American traditions, and even I think it's the Aborigines who talk about we existed underground and we went through these different worlds, and finally we came out into the glistening world. Oh, and then we got a sun and a moon, which didn't exist prior to that.
Exactly. So, the interesting aspect of all of this is the fact that it doesn't matter what ancient culture you would like to investigate, the origin stories, the beginnings, they're virtually identical. To ask the question, or to say, well, that's all coincidence because, it's just the human subconscious that, it's of course logical that all of our ancestors would come up with the same stories. No, it's not logical at all, because it's impossible for anyone to solve an algebraic equation without knowing the mathematical basics. It's impossible. I don't care how smart you are. You can't do it. And so my argument is that all of these stories had to have had some type of an initial spark of inspiration. Something happened that jolted our ancestors in such a strong fashion that that jolt didn't happen in their heads. It happened in reality, because one thing we also have to remember, sure, today, we might be able to figure something out a little bit quicker than our ancestors did. But why? Because our collective consciousness in this day and age is vastly bigger than the collective consciousness of our ancestors 10,000 years ago. I mean, they knew way less than what we know today. And then all of a sudden they're visited by extraterrestrials. Of course they're flummoxed by this visit. Of course they're frightened. Of course it went completely over their head. Not because they were stupid intellectually speaking, but because their technological frame of reference was nowhere near the comprehension of understanding modern mechanics.
In the same breath, and this is kind of a philosophical comment, when you read the ancient text, there is this strong underlying principle about worshiping the gods, praying to the gods, giving them devotion, surrendering to the gods. And I think people, wouldn't necessarily do that unless there was some outside source kind of saying, hey, if you want this stuff, this is what you need to do to get it.
Absolutely, and I couldn't have said it any better myself, that you're absolutely right, because, if these gods would have all been a figment of our ancestors' imagination, I don't think that all the labor that they put into the monuments and all the carvings and the writings and all that stuff, a fantasy would have not been compelling enough at the time. Today, everybody, runs to church and Jesus and the Quran and all those different religions. Today it's different. But back then, the mode of living, first and foremost, it was about shelter. It was about finding food, survival. That's what it all came down to. So then to suggest that our ancestors had nothing better to do than to sit around a campfire and come up with stories of these bizarre beings descending from the sky and flying shields, that's just ridiculous. So I wholeheartedly agree with you that, the reason why it was so compelling for them to do all this and write it all down is because it was actually their history. It happened to them in a physical fashion at that point in time.
It also seems that the gods that they dealt with weren't necessarily all that nice or friendly to them in particular. Well, it doesn't seem like they were friendly with each other. You read some of the text and they're always fighting.
Well, certainly.
And
especially that they're, you're right, that they were not friendly, especially to each other. And so I really think that mankind was sort of just caught up in the middle, because the main fights, the main battles always took place between factions of gods, of different gods. And so that mankind was in the middle of this. And yes, there are stories where, mankind itself or people are not treated, quite nicely by these extraterrestrials. But by and large, the great majority of these texts do speak that the gods were rather benevolent to us and that they taught us in scientific disciplines like, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, agriculture, all those, different things. And that, the gods were quite revered. But then again, there are in ancient Greece stories where the people, all of a sudden, the human beings became disenchanted with the gods because the gods, didn't treat the humans nice enough. So that's where we have these stories of demigods, half human, half extraterrestrial, going against or fighting the gods, on Mount Olympus and things like that. So it's quite fascinating how we have all these different stories and how everything today has ended up in the realm of mythology, legends, and fantasy. I mean, it's funny and pathetic all at the same time.
In the same breath, it makes me wonder, and I'm sure people listening to this, it might make them wonder if our, and I'm going to say aggressive and violent nature as a society is something that we were taught as opposed to something that's actually inherent in us naturally.
Well, I think it is inherent within us naturally because of the entire balance of the universe, the yin and the yang. Even though I do firmly believe that in the end, good always outweighs the bad. But I don't think that, that we were taught being violent, because that's an intrinsic thing that's within all of us. And, I've got news for all the New Agers out there, who think that if extraterrestrials were to show up tomorrow, everything will be hunky-dory and all our energy problems will be solved and things like this. That's not the case, because just like we have problems on planet Earth, extraterrestrial civilizations have their own problems on their respective home planets, in their respective worlds. To suggest that no wars or no battles exist, amongst the extraterrestrials is complete nonsense, because the only thing that I firmly think has occurred is that at least extraterrestrial intelligences have at least come to the conclusion that killing their own species or killing amongst their own race, that at least they've learned to stop doing that, so that if there are battles out there and if there are wars, then it's between planets, it's between civilizations, but it's not between one continent to the next, or from one country to the next, or from one political faction to the other. But so that they figured that one out, that, we all live on this planet together and we're one. And that has not happened yet here on Earth. And I think that until that happens, there is no way we'll make official contact with ETs, because we are, by and large, a very dangerous planet to make contact officially. Because, making contact, it's not a right. It's a privilege, and right now we're flushing that privilege down the toilet as we speak, because we've got all the tools within our hearts. We know what's good, we know what's bad, we know what's morally right and what's morally wrong. Yet, 90% of the population doesn't care, and greed runs rampant. The environment is being polluted, and there is no reason why we should not have a car today that gets 500 miles to the gallon. No reason, because the technology exists, yet it's being kept under lock and key. So, that's what I'm talking about, that, we've got all the tools, we've got all the advancements, but no one is acting on it. And this is why radio shows such as this one are so important, because this is all part of the waking up process that we find ourselves in right this second. The waking up will not happen in 2012. It will not happen in the next 20 years in this mind-boggling event. The waking up moment, the paradigm shift, is going on right this second. So they're very exciting times we're living in right now. Very exciting times.
We're going to be hitting a commercial break here in a second, so let me ask this one hopefully quick question.
Hopefully.
If, or should I say when, extraterrestrials do return, do you think they're going to be friendly to us, or do you think they would come back with their own agenda in the same way they came here with their own agenda?
Well, it's definitely when. It's not if. It's most certainly when. Whether or not it's in our lifetime, I don't know. It's certainly not 2012. But friendly or not friendly, personally, in my heart, I believe. I don't think in this case. I believe, because belief always has a religious connotation, some type of a faith-based connotation to it. So I believe that when extraterrestrials come back, that it will be a benevolent encounter, especially since it would be the first official encounter in the modern world. But it is, after all, a 50-50 chance. And if you believe or listen to Michio Kaku, if you listen to Stephen Hawking, he says we should avoid at all cost, even trying to make contact with ET, because they will eat us for lunch, or they will eat us for dinner and dessert and all this. And to be honest with you, I think that's nonsense, because if that were the case, then that would have happened a long time ago already, and they would have annihilated us already, years and years ago. So the fact that we're still here, and the fact that we've been aided in these genetic bottleneck effects, I really do think that we're good. We're good. It'll be fine. But the
aliens can come down to Texas because we got guns.
Yeah, exactly. And your gun and the guns in Texas or anywhere will really, phase the extraterrestrials, because they don't have any defense mechanisms against guns.
Yeah, we got sticks too. Oh, and chicken bones. Lots of good stuff.
And string.
That's right. All right, we're going to take our last break, and when we come back, we're going to have the Mind Yoga question. We're here talking to Giorgio Tsoukalos about Erich Van Daniken's book, Twilight of the Gods. Lots of great stuff. His webpage is legendarytimes.com, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com.
Hi, I'm James Alphayanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. Listen to Dr. Rita's Soul Healer Moment live each third Sunday night of the month on Feet to the Fire. www.feet2fire.com for more information.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, the host of Just Energy Radio and the founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics. Start a new career today on the leading edge of alternative health and healing. The Institute of Applied Energetics can help you develop the specialized skills you need to work as an energy medicine practitioner, intuitive counselor, or professional medical intuitive. Besides our outstanding technical instruction, our programs also support you in creating and building a successful business in this rapidly growing field. Be a catalyst for changing the way healthcare is done around the world.
contact the Institute of Applied Energetics right away or visit appliedenergeticsinstitute.com.